Welcome to the Coachzing Show, offering you the latest creative content marketing tips to help you work less, earn more, and help more people. Are you a coach zinger yet? Join the community where the world's best coaches, therapists, authors, and speakers come to discover the latest industry trends and partner with other like-minded professionals. Go to coachzing.com/community to join. And now, here's your host, Doug Foresta.
Hello, welcome back to the Coachzing Show. This is your host, Doug Foresta. This is a show where we help you, coaches, therapists, speakers, and authors to work less, earn more, and help more people through creative content marketing. My guest today is Bryan Kramer, and I know you'll get a lot out of this episode. We're going to talk about things including writing, which I know a lot of you, a lot of us struggle with in terms of making the time to write. So I know you'll get great tips out of this episode, so stay tuned. I'll say a little bit about Bryan and bring him right on. I just want to remind you before I do that if you'd like to get a transcript of this episode or any episode, go ahead and visit coachzing.com/community. That's coachzing.com/community. So Bryan Kramer is a social business strategist and CEO of Pure Matter, where he's led his agency to consistent growth over the last 10 years, earning a spot at Silicon Valley's fastest growing private companies by the Silicon Valley Business Journal. He is recently author of a new best-selling book, Human to Human, #H2H. He has extensive experience in brand marketing with a focus on integrated communications and strategic business planning. His focus, fun, and passion is as CEO of Pure Matter. It's proudly one of the fastest growing private companies in Silicon Valley. As a social media strategist, followed by over 200K combined social media followers, he's often asked to keynote, and in true social style, he loves to talk about social marketing and marketing. And Bryan's been included on some of the following lists: 43rd most talked about marketer by global senior marketers, by Leadtail, number 26 global top CEO influencer on social media cred, top 25 influencer to follow on Forbes, 100 most influential tech people on Twitter by Business Insider. And you can learn more about Bryan Kramer at bryankramer.com. That's BRYANKRAMER.com. We'll put that link on the show page as well. Bryan Kramer, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me, and thanks for the kind intro. That was
Thank you. I know we only scratched the surface of all the things that you've done. That's just a little tiny bit.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
So I start with obviously you've been very successful. You've really been able to get your message out and build a successful company and help lots of other people. And so I'm curious about what your favorite strategy or strategies are to get the word out to people who most need to hear it.
There's a lot of different ways. I'm a big multitasker, and I'm a little bit ADD, like I think the rest of us in this world. So, there's so many ways, but I will walk you through a few of them. And at the heart of the whole thing, I believe in, the hub and spoke model, where you really need to have that epicenter, that one place where you can hold all your content. For me, it's my blog. For other people, it could be social property like a Facebook or a community or a group, or something on LinkedIn like a group there. There's a lot of different places that different companies hold their hubs. And so for me, anyway, I believe in the owned model of content, and I like to own my own content, and I placed a value on the time that it takes to write that content so that it would motivate me to do that, which I've done now once a week for, I would say, 3 years now, I believe. Wow. And for 3 years, I've written at least one blog a week, if not more. And I hold myself to that every Sunday to get that out, to go live Monday. And so that's good. I think part of that is just having a ritual, something that you can do. The other thing I did is I placed, like I said before, a value on it so that I knew how much my time was worth. And I almost pretended like I was getting paid to do it. And now I do get paid that amount. So it was kind of like setting a vision for what I wanted to be paid to do what I love to do, to see the results that I get to see. And then the other thing, the last thing about it is that I see it as all coming together as a way to strike a conversation and meet people. We want people to, I always say 50% of it is creating it. The other 50 is getting people there. If you can't get the traffic in to read something that you're writing, then, you may not be writing around something that you're passionate enough about, because I believe that, passionate writing and smart writing, when it comes from your brain and your heart combined, then you're going to get some good stuff out and people are going to want to read it. And so anyway, when that happens, it really helps to strike up a good relationship. And that's what I think this is all about. It's about putting content out that attracts people in. And when it resonates, you get to have that conversation with somebody, and now a relationship is born. So, that is my whole strategy for my own content. I work with a lot of different companies at a lot of different levels, enterprise, mid-level companies, for all kinds of different content strategies. But anyway, that's the one that I use for myself.
I love how you set, before you started getting paid for it, you set yourself. I think that's a great lesson for listeners about setting yourself an idea of how much do I want to get paid for this, and you acted as if you were already doing that, and then eventually, of course, you did get paid that.
Yeah, it's it's setting kind of your intent, right?
Yeah.
In anything that you do, you want to set your intent on what's the business reason that you're doing this. Unless you are a self made person with a lot of money and don't need it, and you're just out there doing good things for good people, and I would love to be there someday, but I'm not just quite yet. So I use everything as a tool to get to the next level, to get to where I need to be, and I do that through sharing. I just did a TED Talk 2 months ago, and my whole TED Talk was around the concept of sharing and how sharing can reimagine anyone's future. And that has to have value. You have to place a value on what that's going to do for you. Otherwise, you're just sharing for sharing's sake, and that's not going to help.
That's a very powerful concept, by the way. That I love that about sharing as a way to create value, and certainly setting that intent. I'm really curious. You obviously have been very successful in spreading your influence, and obviously in helping Pure Matter and growing that. And you've worked with lots of people. What do you see as some of the biggest mistakes that people make when they get out there and start sharing content?
That's a good question. I think that there's a lot of people that do a lot of good work. They post their let's go down to the lowest common denominator of a blog. Let's say they write a blog and post it up, and no one gets there. It's a very intimidating place. It's very hard for people, first of all, to put their thoughts and opinions out there and feel like it's their art. It's very close and near and dear to them, and to think that somebody's going to come in and say that they disagree, or they feel like this was not put together very well. Any level of discontent or negativity towards that could I see that as something that takes people down, and they don't keep doing it. They don't pursue. And that's the opposite of what should happen. You should see that as a sign, as, wow, I just I moved someone. I moved them, whether it was in the right or wrong direction. It moved them to respond, whether it's a comment in the blog or a tweet or whatever it is. And so, my thinking is that you really need to get a ritual down. You have to get a content calendar. You have to plan this out, and you have to stay consistent. It's like doing mutual funds. Mutual funds are something that compound over time when it's done right. And you learn, and you do it better, and you hire the right people, and over time, hopefully you can retire because you've done your investing in the right way. And content is exactly the same way. I see content starting on day one with 15 views on some of the people that I coach on their websites, and then it grows, and from there it compounds to 30 the next blog, and over time it gets up to 1,000, and sometimes even as high as 5,000. a month, or even up to 10,000 I've seen. So, there's really, you really have to stay consistent, and you really have to see any negativity or trolls or anything as a positive, not a negative, not something to get you to stop.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And people worry that well, what if people say something negative about me? And someone saying something negative about you is not the worst thing that could happen. People saying nothing about you is the worst thing that could happen, because you're not getting any engagement. And if you don't, to me, if you don't have some haters, it means you're either not taking a stand, or you're not, like you said, you're not impacting people.
Exactly. You really, you're going to attract that kind of stuff. Now, there's a difference between people that are debating and trolls, and
Right.
and there are reasons to just take trolls out and block them. So I believe in that, and I do it all the time. And it's something that's just going to happen. There are people out there that are, it's called invective marketers. They're marketers that have a large social following that they built, and then they just argue and debate, and they're real mean. And so those people are scare the heck out of people, that are just starting out, because they've got a large following, and you shouldn't let it, because they're doing that not just to you but to everybody. So I think that I see it as a positive.
One of the things I'd love to hear, I'd love to hear from you, is about, one of your specialties really is about this, about social selling, right, and that social connection. I'm wondering if you have some tips for our listeners about how they can create more engagement with their, with their listeners, readers, tribe, etc.
You know, it depends on the social network that we're talking about,
Hmm.
but across the board, I would say lists are a great way to listen, and that's really what we're talking about. How do we focus in on what we want to, how we want to engage in who? And it's hard because there's so much noise out there. How do you focus in on the one thing that matters to you? And you do it in the same way you do with anything else in your life. You build a list of people that or brands that you want to get to know, and you can do that on almost every network. Physically go in and build a list, and then I check my list all the time. I'll click on the list, and then I get a stream of just those people or just those brands, and that allows me to see and not miss the important things, because there's no way that with my followers. I think I've got 110,000 followers on Twitter right now, and there's no way I could see everything that everyone's writing. But what I can do is pay attention to the people that engage with me, the ones that like to have a conversation or a healthy debate, and I separate them on different lists, and I do the same thing with sales. So back to your social sales question. People that I really want to get to know, I'll put them on the list, and make sure that I'm addressing, immediate questions or comments or thoughts or even content that they're putting out, so that I can start to warm up and become a known entity in their life. And that makes it just a little bit easier the next time I go to either call them or connect with them or even meet them in person. They know who I am. So it's a very soft sell. I wouldn't say that you should reach out and be creepy, because you will turn people off as fast as you as you try to
Yes.
engage with them. But there's a right time and right place. As long as it's authentic and you see the right conversation, then by all means have that conversation with them.
Yeah, I always think of it like this giant party, and you get invited, and the question, there's always that, it's all about your energy and how you get into. It's like if I went to a party and there were two people having conversation, and I just jumped in. I said, what are we talking about, guys? Right? And there's sort of an art to getting into a conversation, which we know in real life, but for some reason online, it seems more, some like people really struggle with that.
Exactly. I say the same. Yeah, I have the same thinking, even narrowing it down to a cocktail party, and how do you get into a conversation and introduce yourself. And it's a human thing. It's a human quality. It's not a social quality. The networks aren't detracting or taking away from what we can or can't do. It's us and it's a not just an art form. It's a human quality to be able to network, and doing that, if you can't do that in person, it's gonna be very hard. It's gonna be hard online. So I totally agree.
So you've shared a lot of content. You've put a lot out there. You've been very, like I said, very successful in getting your content out there. I'm curious about the any particular content that stands out as sort of the craziest, funniest, most creative question. Anything that stands out for you as having been really particularly effective or viral?
Anything that stands out for me,
Yeah,
that I've
like
done.
yes, exactly.
Yeah. So fun is, I'll go with the fun route.
Sure.
We I ended up, I think it was now a little over a year ago. I got together and I actually met this friend of mine who's now a friend of mine, DJ Waldo, who we were friends. He was another social guy and speaker, and he ended up moving to San Jose with his wife, and we got together with our respective wives, and we were able to share a bottle of wine and have some food and talk about social, and he's just a really fun guy, and especially after a bottle of wine it starts to get even more fun. So we were starting to talk about how social media could build real world relationships, and how could we prove it. And so we went down a list of Hollywood stars that maybe we could reach out to and use a community or use content to help us get lunch with that person. We weren't trying to do anything else other than just have lunch and prove that content could build a real world relationship. And what happened is, we went through and pulled the list, and it ended up becoming Ellen DeGeneres. And Ellen DeGeneres made the list because she was, it appeared to be that she was social, and in the end it wasn't the case. She had a team of people that were tweeting and Facebooking for her. So we, for 90 days, we called it 90 Days to Ellen, and the site's actually still up. It's 90daystoln.com. And we basically we curated content from the community for 90 days, and we enlisted just about everyone we knew, but also grew it by the thousands in terms of the people that took place and or took part on this journey. And we basically didn't say no to anything. Anytime someone had a suggestion as to how we were going to have lunch with Ellen, we took that idea and turned it into content, or we utilized their content to put it up on the site and help share it out. And at the end of the day, we did connect with her team. They did see our stuff. And unfortunately, they didn't respond on social media because they don't respond to anybody on social media. And our campaign was caught by Forbes and Huffington Post and all this great stuff, and yet still the team didn't want to do it. So unfortunately, she's not a connector. But what we did realize is that we did prove the model through everyone that helped. We met people all over the world. We had, I think it was over 120 million impressions and content that ended up becoming a content. The whole thing turned into a campaign that ended up winning Content Marketing Campaign of the Year by the Content Marketing Institute. So lots of things happened out of it. We had big brands participate. We actually gave away donated money to helping people through receiving food donations. So we figured if we're going to eat lunch, then other people should also eat too. And
so a very successful campaign, regardless of whether you had lunch with Ellen or not. It's a very successful campaign.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was, I learned a lot. I learned a ton. We learned that if you reply to every single person, they really appreciate that. And we did. It was almost like a full-time job. I think it ended up pretty well.
What a great! I would challenge listeners to think about how they could use that in their own business and their own their own goals. That is a really brilliant idea. So I know that you have first of all, you have your own book, Human to Human. hashtag, H2H. But I'm curious for you as well. What books, blogs, podcasts, however you like to take in content, motivate and inspire you?
What motivates and inspires me is, going and listening to and reading everything and anything I can get my hands on. I probably read between 300 and 400 articles a day, and I don't read them fully, but I do read. I'm a skipper and scanner, so I go through on Flipboard is my favorite mobile application, and I've set it up with every keyword that I'm interested in so that I can go through it in my downtime. And it's just, I do it at lunch if I'm eating alone, or if I'm, at night when I'm winding down. And I just go through and then I categorize everything so that I can go back and I can either read it later or I can share it out. So Flipboard is a big one for me. And then I like listening to and watching like a lot of podcasts. So I've got Social Media Examiner and Convince and Convert, and I'm trying to think. I don't have my phone in front of me, but there's a lot of different ways that I like to intake it, and I'm kind of trying to prove. I do it in different ways because I like at different times of the day or different times of the week, I think, to take it in through different senses. So I like watching video one day, and then I love TED Talks. Watching
Nice.
TED Talks is just wonderful. I learn something every time. So yeah, those are the ways that I definitely learn and read a lot.
And you had mentioned podcasts too, and I wanted to make sure to mention your podcast from the author's point of view. I know that you have a podcast series as well, so I wanted to make sure to mention that to listeners to check out.
Thank you so much. I'm actually in the process of adding another one called Shareology. It's going to be a takeoff on my next book, which is coming out in the spring.
Oh, I love that.
Which is called Shareology, and so I'm going to basically be talking with people about how they share, how, what, where, when, and why people and brands share, and it's going to be I think it's really exciting. I'm excited to do it.
Bryan Kramer, I really appreciate you coming on today. And again, if people want to learn more about you, they can go to bryankramer.com. That's BRYANKRAMER.com, correct?
That's right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on here.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, again, for listening. And remember, as always, nothing you've heard here is going to make any difference in your life unless you take some action on it. So go out there and make it happen. Till next time, this is Doug Foresta at The Coachzing Show.
Thanks for listening to The Coachzing Show. Need help getting your book out of your head and onto paper? Need help marketing your books or speaking engagements? We can do it for you. Go to Coachzing.com to learn more. Are you a Coach Zinger yet? Join the Coach Zingers community where the world's best coaches, therapists, authors, and speakers meet. You'll get exclusive access to private mastermind calls where you can get instant marketing help from industry experts. Plus, we'll help you forge deals and partnerships with other like-minded professionals. Go to coachzing.com/community to join now.